Congratulations, sweetheart, Dad said, smiling wide as he slid the laptop box across the table. This is an investment in your future. Everyone clapped, plates paused mid-air. My sister Lily gasped and covered her mouth like she couldn't believe it, even though she absolutely could. The box was sleek, expensive, brand new. She hugged Dad, then Mom, then everyone else. Cameras came out. Someone said she deserves it. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, smiling because that's what I always did. A few minutes later, while everyone was still talking about specs and internships, Mom leaned toward me and quietly placed a folded piece of paper beside my plate. No smile, no eye contact. Read it later, she said. It wasn't a card. It was a bill, rent, with a date circled in red. I didn't say anything. I didn't even unfold it right away. I just nodded, took a sip of water, and kept smiling while my sister powered on her new laptop and the room filled with that soft startup sound. That was the moment everything finally made sense. I didn't react, not then, that night wasn't loud, that's what made it worse. The house was full, but somehow I felt invisible. Sarah, the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who never needed much, that's how I'd been introduced my whole life. She's easy, Mom used to say. She doesn't need it. At dinner, Dad stood up to make a toast. He talked about Lily's hard work, her future, how proud he was. He talked about sacrifices, about how family shows up for each other. His eyes never landed on me. I clapped when everyone else did. I even smiled at Lily when she looked over, glowing. She smiled back, distracted, already lost in plans that didn't include me. The paper stayed folded beside my plate. I could feel it there the entire time, like a weight, like proof. I waited until dessert was served, until the plates were cleared, until conversations shifted to jobs and moving cities and how Lily might need help setting up her new place someday. Then I excused myself quietly and went upstairs. My room was small, always had been. I closed the door and finally unfolded the paper. Monthly rent due $600. Deadline end of month, no note, no explanation, just numbers. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at it. My hands didn't shake, my chest didn't tighten. I felt calm, too calm, like something had already snapped earlier and this was just the sound catching up. I thought back to last year, when Dad lost hours at work and I covered groceries without being asked. When Mom needed help with bills and I transferred money the same day. When Lily dropped out of her first program and moved back home and I gave up my parking spot so she could feel more comfortable. No one called those investments. Downstairs, laughter floated up through the vents. The laptop booted again. Someone said, "This is going to change everything for her." I stayed in my room the rest of the night. No one checked on me, no one knocked. At some point, the house quieted, doors closed, lights went off. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I woke up early like always. I showered, got dressed, made my bed. I folded the rent bill neatly and placed it back on my desk. I went downstairs and made coffee. Mom was already up, scrolling on her phone. She looked up when she saw me. "Morning," she said, normal, casual. "Morning," I replied. She poured herself coffee and glanced toward the living room where Lily's laptop was spread open on the table like a centerpiece. "She's so excited," Mom said. "It's good motivation for her." I nodded. "Yeah." Mom hesitated, then added, "About the rent, we thought it was time. You're working full-time now. It's only fair." Fair, the word hung there. "I understand," I said, and I meant it, not the way she thought. Dad came in a few minutes later tying his shoes. He grabbed a banana, barely looking at me. "Don't forget," he said, "rent by the end of the month." "Okay," I replied. He smiled, relieved, like a problem had been solved. Lily came downstairs after that, hair messy, eyes bright. She sat at the table and opened her laptop again, started typing, clicking, dreaming. I poured my coffee into a travel mug and headed for the door. "Work?" Mom asked. "Yeah," I said. No one stopped me. No one asked anything else. At work, I couldn't focus. Not because I was upset, because I was clear. Everything I'd been avoiding finally lined up. I wasn't angry. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't hurt the way people expect you to be. I felt done. That night, I came home later than usual. The house was busy again. Lily was on a video call, laughing. Mom was cooking. Dad was watching TV. No one noticed when I went upstairs. I sat on my bed and looked around my room, the posters, the thrifted furniture, the boxes I'd never fully unpacked just in case. I realized I'd always lived like I might leave someday. I just never knew when. I didn't pack yet, not that night, but something had shifted. Quietly, permanently, I picked up a pen and a small piece of paper from my desk. I didn't write anything yet. I just held it there, thinking about how some messages don't need many words. Downstairs, someone laughed again. I folded the blank paper once and set it aside. I wasn't leaving yet, but I knew I would. The house kept moving like nothing had changed. That was the strangest part. The rent bill stayed on my desk, untouched. Every time I walked past it, I felt steadier, not worse. Like my body had already accepted a truth my heart had been slow to catch up to. At breakfast, Mom talked about Lily's plans, grad school applications, internships, cities she might move to. Dad nodded along, proud, already telling stories about how hard it would be when she left. No one mentioned that I might leave first. I went to work, came home, cooked my own meals, cleaned up after myself. I didn't change my tone. I didn't withdraw. I didn't confront anyone. That silence made them comfortable. Too comfortable. A few days later, Dad stopped me in the hallway. He didn't look serious. Just casual, like he was reminding me about trash day. I checked the calendar, he said. "Rent's due in 2 weeks." "I know," I said. He smiled. "Good, just wanted to make sure we're on the same page." We weren't, but he didn't need to know that yet. That night, I overheard Mom on the phone with her sister. I was halfway down the stairs when I heard my name. "She's doing fine," Mom said. "She's always been independent. Lily's the one we really need to support right now." I stopped walking. I stayed where I was, listening. "It's not favoritism," Mom continued. "It's just different needs." Different needs, same house, same parents, very different expectations. I went back upstairs without making a sound. The next weekend, Lily asked me for help setting up a software program on her laptop. She sat at the kitchen table, frustrated, tapping her fingers. Can you just do it? She said, you're better at this stuff. I stood behind her chair, looking at the screen. I could have fixed it in minutes. Instead, I explained it slowly, step by step. She sighed, never mind, I'll figure it out. She didn't thank me when she finally did. Later that night, Mom knocked on my door. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed. You've been quiet, she said. I'm fine, I replied. She studied me. You know this rent thing isn't personal, right? I looked at her, really looked at her. I know, I said. She seemed relieved. Good. The knock was the closest thing to concern I'd get. Days passed. Then another small shift happened. The family started relying on me without realizing it. Lily left dishes in the sink. Dad forgot to pay the internet bill. Mom asked if I could cover it just this once and take it out of what I owed for rent. I agreed, not because I felt obligated, because I was paying attention. Every time I quietly fixed something, it made the picture clearer. I wasn't a daughter in that house anymore. I was a backup plan, a cushion. Something steady they leaned on without ever looking down. One night I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I didn't browse, I didn't distract myself. I pulled up my bank account, my savings, my credit score, my work schedule. Then I opened a blank document. I titled it nothing. I started listing facts, rent prices in nearby areas, commute times, security deposits, what I could afford without stress. What I could afford without telling anyone. I didn't feel scared. I felt organized. A few days later, Dad mentioned money again. We were eating dinner. Lily was talking about a networking event. Dad cleared his throat. Sarah, since you're paying rent now, we'll expect you to start buying your own groceries too. Mom nodded like this had already been discussed. Of course, I said, setting my fork down. Dad smiled. That's fair. There it was again, that word. After dinner, Lily asked if I could give her a ride the next day. She needed to meet a friend. Her car was low on gas. I can't, I said. I have plans, she frowned. Since when? Since now, she rolled her eyes. Okay, no one defended me, no one questioned her tone. That night I packed a small bag, not to leave, just to see how it felt. I folded clothes carefully, work outfits, casual things, things I liked. I left everything else. I slid the bag under my bed. The next morning, Mom noticed. You cleaning? She asked. Sorting, I said. She didn't ask what for. Days later, Lily got upset about something small, a form she missed, a deadline she didn't know about. She cried at the kitchen table, head in her hands. Mom rushed to her side. Dad stood behind her chair. I don't know what I'm doing, Lily said. Mom rubbed her back. It's okay, we'll figure it out. Dad looked at me. Sarah, can you help her with this? I looked at the form, then at Lily, then at my parents. I'm busy tonight, I said calmly. Silence dropped into the room. Mom blinked. Dad frowned. Lily looked up, surprised. Oh, Mom said, okay, we'll manage. They did poorly. That night I sat on my bed and pulled out the folded blank paper again. I stared at it for a long time, then I unfolded it and wrote one sentence, just one. I folded it back up and placed it in my jacket pocket. No one knew what I was planning, they just felt something change. And for the first time, they were starting to feel uncomfortable. Something was coming. The calm settled in deeper after that, almost polite, almost convincing. No one brought up my refusal again. Dad stopped reminding me about rent like he'd already counted it as done. Mom went back to talking about Lily's future like it was a group project they were all excited to finish together, and Lily stopped asking me for help. At first, I thought she was angry. Then I realized she was avoiding me, not out of guilt, out of discomfort. I'd stepped out of a role she didn't know how to replace. That suited me just fine. I kept my routine steady. Work, gym, home. I didn't rush. I didn't look like someone preparing to leave. I looked like someone settling in. That's what made it easy. Late one night when the house was quiet, I sat on my bed and opened my laptop. I didn't turn on the overhead light, just the lamp, just enough to see clearly. I pulled up the document I'd started days ago. I added to it slowly. Lease requirements, proof of income, move-in dates. I scheduled viewings during lunch breaks. I used my personal email, nothing shared, nothing obvious. I wasn't hiding out of fear, I was hiding out of respect for myself. A few days later, I toured a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, clean, quiet, close to work. The landlord talked fast, asked practical questions, didn't ask about my family. I liked that. When I got back home, Lily was in the living room complaining about how tired she was. Mom was listening, nodding. I kicked off my shoes and walked past them. Hey, Lily said, can you help me later? With what? I asked. She waved her hand, just something on the laptop. I'll see, I said. She sighed. You always say that now. I looked at her, not sharply, just honestly. I know, I said. She didn't respond. That night, Dad knocked on my door. He stood there longer than Mom ever did. Hands in his pockets, weight shifting. You good? He asked. Yes, I said. He nodded slowly. You've just seemed distant. I waited, let him fill the space. You're not upset about the rent thing, are you? He added. I met his eyes, calm, neutral. No, I said. I understand. That word again, understand. He relaxed, smiled a little. Good, we just want what's best for everyone. I closed the door after he left and leaned against it, not because I was shaken, because I was certain. The next morning, I signed the lease. The landlord slid the papers across the desk. I read every line, initialed every page. When I handed them back, my hand was steady. Move-in date, he asked. Next week, I said. He nodded. We'll have the keys ready. I walked out of that office lighter than I'd felt in years. At home, nothing changed. That was the strange beauty of it. Lily complained about stress. Mom reminded her to drink water. Dad talked about work. No one asked me anything real. Packed slowly, a few things at a time. I used my laundry basket so it looked normal. Clothes disappeared from my closet, shoes from the rack, books from the shelf. No one noticed. One evening, Lily knocked on my door. She stood there awkwardly, holding her laptop. I'm stuck, she said, just for a second. I stepped aside and let her in. She explained the problem. I listened, then I showed her how to fix it, quickly, efficiently. Oh, she said, that's it? That's it, I replied. She hesitated. Thanks, I nodded, no warmth, no edge, just neutral. As she left, she glanced back at my room, at the half-empty shelves, the clear floor. You reorganizing? She asked. Yes, I said. She frowned slightly, then shrugged and walked away. 2 nights before my move-in date, Mom cooked a full dinner, candles, dessert, the kind of meal that meant something even if no one said it. At the table, Dad raised his glass. To family, he said, to sticking together. They all clinked glasses. I lifted mine last. To clarity, I said. They smiled, thought it was just another quiet Sarah comment, something easy to ignore. After dinner, Mom handed me a small envelope. This is for you, she said. Inside was a card, a generic one, no money, just a message about how proud they were of me for being responsible, for stepping up. I thanked her. Later that night, I sat on my bed and pulled out the folded note from my jacket pocket, the one I'd written days ago. I read it once more. Not to change it, just to confirm it still felt true. It did. I placed it back in my pocket and zipped my jacket closed. Tomorrow I would leave, quietly, cleanly, no arguments, no scenes. Downstairs, the TV played softly. Someone laughed at a joke I couldn't hear. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was waiting for something to get better. I felt like it already had. I left early, not in a rush, not sneaking. Just before anyone else woke up, the house was quiet in that fragile way it only ever was at dawn. I moved through it carefully, not because I was afraid of being caught, but because I respected the moment. I pulled my jacket on, lifted my bag, and paused at the kitchen table. That's where I left the note, folded once, clean, simple, right where Mom always put the mail. Then I walked out and closed the door behind me without a sound. By the time Mom came downstairs, coffee already brewing in her head, the house felt wrong, not empty, just off, like something important had been moved without permission. She saw the note first. She didn't open it right away. She stood there staring at it, frowning, like she was trying to remember if she'd placed it there herself. Then she unfolded it. Sarah has moved out. Please don't worry, I'm safe. I needed clarity. Sarah, that was it. No explanations, no accusations, no goodbye. Mom called my name once, twice. Her voice echoed up the stairs, no answer. She went to my room next. The door was open, the bed was made, the closet was nearly empty, the shelves bare. It didn't look trashed or emotional, it looked intentional. Dad found out 10 minutes later. He stood in the doorway, reading the note again, like the words might rearrange themselves if he stared long enough. She didn't say anything, he said. Mom shook her head. Nothing. Lily came downstairs, rubbing her eyes. What's going on? Mom handed her the note. Lily read it fast, then slower. She moved out, she said, like today. Dad pulled out his phone, called me, it rang, went to voicemail. He called again, straight to voicemail. Mom texted, then texted again. Her messages stacked up one after another. Where are you? Are you okay? Please answer. I didn't. By noon, the panic shifted into confusion. Dad checked the garage. My parking spot was empty. He went through the house like he was counting inventory. Shoes, coat hooks, laundry room. Mom sat at the table staring at the note, tapping it with her finger. This doesn't make sense, she said. She would have told us. Lily hovered near the stairs. She's been weird lately. Weird how? Dad asked. Lily shrugged. Quiet, not helping, just different. Different, not dramatic, not angry, just no longer available. That afternoon, reality started leaking in through small cracks. The internet went out. Dad called the provider and found out the bill hadn't been paid. He looked at Mom. I thought you handled that, Mom frowned. I thought Sarah was. Then Lily asked about her car insurance. The payment hadn't gone through. The account was under my name. Mom opened the pantry. Half the staples were gone. The things I bought, the things I always restocked without anyone asking. By evening, the house felt louder, not with noise, with absence. Dad sat at the table again, staring at the rent bill still sitting where Mom had left it days earlier. She hasn't paid, he said slowly. Mom looked up. What, the rent? She hasn't paid it. Silence stretched between them. Lily's voice came out small. Wait, what happens if she does? Dad didn't answer. That night, Mom called me again. This time, she left a voicemail. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't calm either. Sweetheart, she said, we just want to talk. If you're upset, we can work it out. You don't have to do this. Do what? Leave the role they never admitted I was playing. The next morning, Dad tried my work. My manager confirmed I was fine, that I'd asked for adjusted hours starting next week. Adjusted for what? Mom sat down hard in the chair. She planned this, she said quietly. Lily looked between them. Planned what? Dad held up the note. This. They didn't yell. That's what surprised me later when I thought about it. They didn't explode. They unraveled. By day 3, the consequences stopped being theoretical. Bills stacked up, routines broke. Lily missed an appointment because no one reminded her. Mom burned dinner because she was distracted. Dad snapped over something small, then apologized awkwardly. They started saying my name more often, not with annoyance, with uncertainty. By day 4, Lily knocked on my old door out of habit. It stayed open, empty. She stood there longer than she needed to. She didn't even say goodbye, Lily said that night. Mom didn't respond. Dad finally said she did in her way. That evening, Mom found something else. In the drawer where I used to keep paperwork, she found copies of old bills, transfers, receipts, months of quiet support she'd never tracked. She sat down and spread them across the table. Dad stared at them. Lily leaned over, eyes widening. She paid for all this? Lily asked. Mom swallowed. Yes. No one spoke after that, not because there was nothing to say, but because for the first time, the story they'd been telling themselves didn't fit the evidence in front of them. And somewhere across town, I unlocked my new door for the first time, stepped into my empty apartment and closed it behind me. The power had already shifted. They just hadn't fully felt it yet. The first night in my apartment, I didn't unpack fully. I just sat on the couch looking around at the clean, quiet space. No one was calling, no one needed me. For the first time, the silence felt like freedom, not emptiness. I thought about the house, about Lily, about mom and dad, about the life I'd left behind without drama, without confrontation. Their confusion, the small cracks in their routines, the slow panic, it wasn't revenge in the loud, obvious way. It was a quiet correction, a mirror showing them what life looked like without me silently holding it together. By the second week, the messages slowed. Calls from mom and dad became shorter, more factual. Lily tried texting, asking for help with small things, but I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel, because I needed them to understand something I never could say with words. That my presence wasn't automatic, that care and support weren't privileges, they were choices. The first real consequence came when Dad had to call in extra hours at work because he forgot to handle a project I had always managed from home. Mom realized she had to hire someone to help with the bills she once assumed I would handle. Lily had to reschedule 2 deadlines because no one reminded her. The house had shifted from comfortable chaos to a subtle struggle, and it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive, it was steady. I watched from afar, knowing the lesson was working. A month passed, I had a routine of my own: work, gym, cooking, Netflix, quiet evenings, uninterrupted sleep, no one leaning on me as a safety net. I had clarity, I had dignity, and for the first time I had space to decide what mattered to me without someone else's expectations suffocating it. One evening, Mom called. Her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, but still uncertain. "Sarah," she said, "we've been thinking maybe we treated you differently, we didn't see it." "I know," I replied, calm, no anger, no pleading, just truth. "What do you mean? You made choices about me without including me." "I've always helped, always stayed quiet, and that's what you expected." I needed to leave to show that my care wasn't automatic. Silence. "I understand," she finally said. "It wasn't perfect, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't the apology I might have wanted years ago, but it was acknowledgement, and for me that was enough." Weeks later, I ran into Lily at a coffee shop. She didn't immediately recognize the calm I carried. She spoke quickly, nervously, trying to apologize. I didn't realize. She started, I shook my head. "It's okay, I just needed to do this for me." She nodded, eyes wide, realizing for the first time that her older sister had limits, that she wasn't just always there. I didn't gloat, I didn't point fingers, I just sipped my coffee and smiled softly. Back home, Mom and Dad slowly adjusted. They learned what tasks were theirs, what responsibilities weren't automatic. And for the first time, I wasn't just the quiet, reliable daughter. I was someone with boundaries, someone whose presence had weight because it was chosen, not assumed. The final lesson wasn't revenge in the way the world expects. It wasn't drama or confrontation. It was quiet, calm, and undeniable. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to argue. I just walked away. And the ripples I left behind did the work I never could have said aloud. Sometimes I think about the house, the laptop, the rent bill. And I smile, not with satisfaction over them, but with clarity about me, about my choices, about knowing my worth. Because the loudest message I could ever send wasn't written on paper or yelled in anger or shouted in a fight. It was the simple act of leaving. The quiet, deliberate, unshakable choice to step away and live life on my terms. And in that quiet, for the first time, I finally felt free.